I'm Cray Beaumont Flynn. Welcome to Beyond the Design, a show that gives you a peek behind the curtain of the design industry and shares the stories of those that are the driving force behind it. Well, welcome to Beyond the Design, and today we have Suzie and David Lucas from Lucas Interior Studio. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Cray.
Hi, Cray. Thank you.
Well, we're just going to start off, and I'm going to ask you to tell us your story of how you got involved into this industry and what drives you.
Dave, I feel like you need to, so just so you know, I think we should share with with your listeners that we're brother and sister. Dave is the big brother, and we're also a family business. So our sister Rachel, who's very much a part of our business, isn't on the podcast today because she's more on the background things, end of things, in terms of not on the design forward aspect. But with that, I think Dave should lead the story because, big brother.
Yeah, it all starts with me. I came first.
There you go. You got priority.
Yeah, it was funny when Sue and I were like talking about this. We're like, what are we gonna say? Like, how do we talk about our business and how salty can we get? Stuff like that.
As salty you want to get. We're not censored.
Susie's like, don't get too salty. Susie's the sweet one. I'm the salty one. So I mean, basically, our industry it's sort of, I feel like, like the stories that different people have around how they got into the industry, it kind of like, it's sort of all over the place, right? Like I feel like more often than not, I hear stories about people who, it's like they sort of organically ended up getting into design and interiors. It just sort of happened as this series of events, maybe like connections with friends and interest in decorating and in design and stuff like that. That is like not our story. I have been designing houses since I was like 3 years old. This is like, this has been, I was saying to Susie, I'm like, I think maybe I believe in past lives because there's no way that I could have like known about, in this design the way that I did as like a, little kid. It just doesn't make any sense. So, really I've been, it's been like a lifelong passion. Like it's just something that, it's like I've had this sort of drive and the, kind of real interest and, kind of fire for architecture and design, but have not really had the access or the connection to it. I mean, we come from a pretty humble background. There were no real mentors for what it meant to be in a career of architecture or design. So it was sort of something that I had to, it's like I have been, like I said, drawing since I was forever, really interested in architecture, like building little models, just sort of something that, then eventually I was like, oh, I can go to school for this. I can go to college and, kind of
you can
learn
make a life
more.
out of it.
Yeah. I mean, literally it sounds so stupid, but it was like, there was no, like, it was like I was in the dark. Like there was really nobody really leading me into like, how do you take this interest and desire and turn that into something that can become your career? And so, it's like eventually I figured it out. Like I stumbled my way into like, okay, I went to Parsons School of Design. In there, obviously like it's a challenging school. I made, a lot of great connections with, teachers. And that's sort of where I really feel like I started to be mentored. I feel like if it wasn't for some of those relationships that I had with, the teachers in school, I wouldn't have understood the process. I mean, it's because of that I ended up getting, internships and, and then, eventually jobs.
I'll jump in and just support David's freaky obsession with drawing as a little kid. I mean, we don't need to put ages on everything, but I can't speak to David's, like, 5-year-old floor plans, but when I was probably about 5 or 6, David was a teenager, and I remember him just, like, in his room listening to, like, goth music and just drawing. I'm like, "What?" Everyone's like, "What is he doing in there?" And then just churning out these amazing '80s, like, dynasty-inspired floor plans, like
Yeah, like
curved,
100%.
staircases, just,
Right.
like so
Yeah.
I think that was pre-Parsons, but I'm
Yeah,
just
definitely.
validating that you were trying to explore what it all means, how it all
Yeah,
comes
like
together.
through the eyes of like a very Long Island teenager, you know, like but yeah, so I think that like, obviously then that turned into, sort of was very incremental, and it's like I had to sort of like prove my worth in order to like, kind of climb to the next rung. And so,
Mhm.
eventually I worked for a firm in New York that was like, my job was detailing handicap accessible bathrooms for off
Ooh.
track, off track betting branches. So like to keep the guys in there from like peeing on the street outside.
Right. An
So that
important
was,
factor, but not very
yeah,
creative.
that was like, no, that was no, actually, it was like what was so amazing about this job is number one, I got to go to like every single borough of New York. And it's like it's just getting this like really great education on like, just what New York, how New York City is connected, what the
Mhm.
different neighborhoods are like. I mean, there's just like so much there. And then like with the job itself, it's like, yeah, from the outside, it's like a very boring job, but like, each of the spaces was different. And then having to go in and insert this function in a way that wasn't going to disrupt the way that the space flowed, but actually gave this additional usage. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like not the greatest design thing in the world. If I had to do that today, I'd
Right.
probably shoot myself. But it's like at the time, it was a great challenge. So anyway, I go from this to moving out west. I moved to Seattle, just because Seattle at the time was like so incredibly cheap, and you could live in like a normal like house or apartment for like less money than I paid to share a studio in New York, like that kind of
Right.
thing. Like so, it was just a very livable city at the time. So it just felt like I wanted to move out west. I always kind of felt this connection to the Northwest, and so moving out here, I started working for an interior designer, and because he was sort of looking for an in-house architect. And so from there, it's sort of like I went from, this one world into like the, kind of like highest of high end residential interior work, with this designer in Seattle. So it was like,
Mhm.
that's where it's sort of like, I think my path kind of got into the realm of design that I've sort of like now built a, 20-25 year career from.
So,
And
Susie,
so
how did you get tied into this and your sister?
So, I think,
sorry, Sue, I'm going to interrupt you. We're going to leave Rachel to the end because we sort of tricked Rachel, but we'll get into
Oh.
that after.
so David must have been out here for a few years. I had probably visited a few summers in a row, and I just really liked it. I was going to school in Manhattan, SVA for fine art, and I just wanted to make a change. So, I had visited my boyfriend at the time, now husband. He and I had visited a few summers in a row, and we were just like, "Let's go move across the country." Not really. When you're like 20 years old, you don't really think about, uh, you know, 2
Right.
feet in front of you. We were just like, "Let's do it." And so we landed here, and I just got any random job I could. And then David was like, "We need help in the office." So the interior designer David was working for, his name's Terry Hunziker. I don't know if you've known
Name
his
sounds
work,
familiar.
Cray, but yeah, I mean, an amazing designer, right? And like David said, it's like, especially for somebody like me who David at least was like on the track of architecture and diving deep into that world. I just was sort of like, I really so I have the organic story of like, I just kind of fell into it. So Terry's office was quite small. It was really just Terry, David, and one other guy. And it was like 3 guys in an office, so nobody was doing library, nobody was organizing things. So I just I would show up on Fridays and start organizing, and that quickly turned into part-time and then quickly full-time. And I just was like a little sponge in that office. I just like loved everything about it. I loved being around all the materials. I I already loved drawing and learning how to. David did teach me how to like draw to scale, which was
Mm.
new and exciting and like something that we don't really do anymore, but it was great.
From
Um,
his 5-year-old drawings or for recent?
I mean, he was just like it really was like fast track learning how this like, crazy world works of high-end residential interior design. And right around the same time, David actually had a life change where he moved back to New York. So he sort of like I followed him out here and then he left me. He went back to New York. But I stayed working with Terry, and I sort of became the liaison between David and Terry for many, many years, probably about 10 years. And that was where I really learned how to project manage, just all the ins and outs of working on these super complicated high-end homes. And it's funny when I think back in time, like I had zero clue what we were doing at first. Like I'll always remember my first design center visit. I was like, clearly, when I think back to it now, there must have been an event going on, but I remember going into a showroom and there was just people drinking wine, and I was like, "This is like a mall
This
where
is how
there's
people work?
furniture, but you can't really buy anything." But, what are these people doing? I was so confused, and, now obviously it all makes sense, but it's a unique world, I think, especially at the time that I got into it, which was, like, sort of pre-internet, right? It was like the
So
internet hadn't taken over every aspect of our lives.
what was the catalyst and who had the epitome of to start a business together with all 3 siblings?
I think it was a
Suzie,
natural
it was
yeah,
no. So I'm gonna give you the credit because I actually, like Suzie said, I had left and gone to New York. I was working more as like I was an outside consultant for Terry. Just basically what I would say that means is if there were projects that I didn't want to work on, I wasn't
Mm,
working on them. I only worked on the projects that like,
nice.
you know, but and then I also took some additional projects on my own. Um, but and then what ended up happening is those other projects that I wasn't working on, Susie ended up working on those projects in the office. So between the two of us, we were like managing all of the office projects. And we're talking about like, the office is in Seattle, but that work was like all over California, Texas, like South Korea, New Zealand.
Wow.
Like we were working on we were sort of like going to all of these different job sites. So we really learned how to work remotely, work on projects with project teams, long distances, really well from the many years that we, worked together in this
Mhm.
office. So basically what happened is I ended up coming back out to Seattle to live, and then Susie and I were both back in the office, and Susie one day just turns to me and she's like, why are we running this man's office? Like she was basically just like why are we doing this? Like does this make sense? And I was, because I never really thought about it like that, because I just don't have like Susie is the planner. She's the one who sort of like, puts everything on the list and figures out what we need to do to get to those next stages. And so it just like, I was just happy that I was like, oh, I get to work in design. I'm so excited. This is like amazing. And even though it was like with another person's name on it, which is annoying, it still, I was still able to work in this industry that I felt privileged to work in because of, how amazing is it that this person from my background gets to, work
Mhm.
on these amazing houses with these incredible architects and, whatever. So, but it was Susie who was like, no, we can this is like, we should be doing this for ourselves. We should be building our own presence in the design community. And so, yeah, like little sister, taskmaster, president of the company.
Well, I think also when I say it was like a natural evolution, I think at a certain point you can like if the if Terry's work is very like he has a look, he
Yeah,
doesn't want to he doesn't like it doesn't evolve in certain ways, but people love it and go to him for it. And I was always trying to bring new things to the table, like, "Oh, what about this chair? What about this fabric?" And, like, out of 10 suggestions, like, I would be so excited if he used 1. Um, and I think after a while, you're just like, it was time for us to be able to just make our own
Right.
decisions, and so
yeah.
I think from a design point of view, we wanted to be able to not have to have approval on things.
Yeah, and it's just like Susie has a voice in design, I have a voice in design, and it's like we work really hard, like it really works well, like what we each bring to our projects. It's like very seamless, and
Mhm.
it just we complement and support the what we each bring to the table. And it's just like our the only way that that was ever going to happen is, like Susie said, us kind of taking the leap and going off on our own, which was like scary for me. But Susie is kind of fearless in that way. She's like, whatever, like we'll figure it out, it's fine.
I I don't know, maybe. We feel really grateful that it worked, let's just say that. It definitely could have not
Yeah.
worked, but we're very grateful it worked.
Well,
And it's been
especially since you're siblings as well. I mean, you've grown up with each other your entire lives, and now you're working with each other, so
yeah,
Yeah.
it's kinda crazy, you know? I think it's probably, for the people in our office, which, we have such great team members who are so like, work so hard and are just really we're so lucky to have such a awesome team, but I'm sure we drive them crazy, especially the 3 of us, because we can just be fighting and, driving each other nuts, and then it's like, "Oh, what's for lunch?" Like,
right.
it's like that family dynamic of, like, you can just be like, we can flip the switch really easily of going from being, like, catty with each other to, like, "Alright, what's next?" And I think people around us are probably like, "Oh my god, these people are insane." Like,
Yeah.
we try to keep it professional at work, but
Right.
sometimes it's hard, right? You
Yeah.
just fall into
And then Rachel, just to close the loop on the Craig's question. So Susie and I were out here, like, we just sort of like, luckily we got, just through like years of developing relationships with, like, contractors and architects and like different fabricators. Like, we basically, our network of support were like all of those people that we had spent years working with. Like, that was really
Mhm.
our network to draw upon. And
Right.
also like clients, like, clients that we had, because, like I said, the office we came from, I treated all of the clients in that office as if they were my own. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was working for somebody. I felt like,
Mhm.
that it was my responsibility to make sure that these people were happy. So, like those clients were, like when they heard that we were going off on our own, they referred us to potential projects, and
Right.
which was great. And so Susie and I ended up getting a few projects in that way. And so it's like we're just like kind of like jumping into it and like starting all this design work, but like meanwhile nobody is handling the back end. So like we were like working on all this stuff, and then like we just like we realized, oh, there's this like financial piece of this that we have to somehow get figured out. And so that was when we were like, all right, we need Rachel, because Rachel has like this mathematical brain. And so we just were sort of like, Ray, you should really move out to Seattle. It's like, it's so like inexpensive here, and it's so beautiful, and it's just like the greatest place in the world to live. So we like trick her to come, we have her move out here, and then basically like chain her to a desk, and like she's not able to like do anything but
no,
work.
literally, she got off the plane and we went right to an Office Max. Which is
Guess what? You're working.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about Rachel is, Rachel did go to Parsons. She went for furniture design, so she has, like, just a natural understanding of design,
Mm,
and she loves reminding everybody in the office, she's like, "I know how to use CAD, I taught CAD," and I think that actually brings it really does help when the person doing the financial side truly understands, what we're
right.
doing. And we wouldn't be able to do it without her because I was doing our taxes and money in the beginning, and it was an absolute nightmare, like,
Right.
an absolute, just total mess of money, so
Yeah, I think Rachel was like, "It took a year to clean up our mess," basically. So, yeah, so it's sort of like I think it's like and from that, it has just, like, evolved into what it is today with the 3 of us together.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about a little bit about your projects and scope of work that you're doing. Is most of it in the Northwest region? Or are you doing national work as well?
National, I think that basically because of the fact that we were already so used to working in different places that like
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have just specifically this Northwest like network. We had this great network already in Southern California, for instance, because we were already working with so many different architects and contractors and whatever like down there, so that if somebody had a some kind of a lead on something down there, we were able to then interview and luckily, get projects, like for instance in Southern California. And it's just kind of like grown in different places. Like we do a lot of work in Sun Valley, Idaho. We do, we just basically we'll go wherever they want us, we'll
Mm-hmm.
go, you know.
But, yeah, I think the magnitude is mostly, Southern California, a lot of work out in the desert, we have a few projects locally here in Seattle, in terms of ground up construction, a lot of Sun Valley. What else? Pebble Beach, kind of that's an exciting one that just kind of,
Just
is
started.
gonna be, yeah, just started. So, yeah, it's just managing all the different timelines, right?
And David, since you have an architectural background, are you doing architectural work and interior work as well?
Yes, I mean, I think that one of the main things that people um come to us for is the sense of that the we don't like I don't look at interior design as decorating. It's not like a decorative process for me. Like interior
Right.
design, like I see it very much that let's say like architecture is like the bone and the flesh, and like the interior design is the skin. So it's like if we have to as interior designers be very respectful of what the architecture is, like
Uh-huh.
how our job is like, we have to be holistic about the process. And so for me, there is really no, I, the, if there's something, all right, I'm just going to say it, like we get floor plans all the time. We get like, houses that like will come to us to look at for, potential project. And I'll just be like, this house is terrible. Like if we just made like these changes to it, like it would be a much better project for the client. And like sometimes that doesn't work, but like sometimes it does work.
Right,
So
right.
like there will be times when, for instance, I'll just completely redesign a house and be like, hey, I know you just hired us to like maybe design some fireplaces and do your interior furniture, but like your this house really should be this. And like oftentimes the client, luckily for me, and it's usually the clients that are best for me because they understand that like what we can bring to the table, they'll be like, wow, like that's what I've been waiting for. Like I don't know what it was about the current design, but it just felt off to me. And like you completely have like, now I see, you've sort of like you're seeing what I'm seeing in this project. So that's sort of what is the most exciting for me, is being able to do that. And oftentimes that means being very heavily involved in the architecture. Luckily,
Mhm.
we work with, I say like we get projects that, things shown to us that are like not the greatest projects, but most of the time we never take those kinds of projects
Right.
anymore. But
Anymore.
but like we work with some really great architects as well. And one in particular, we work a lot with this architect, Bill Heyer, down in Southern California. He does a lot of work in La Jolla, like Del
Mhm.
Mar, out in the desert. And we just have this like really great, like symbiotic relationship where like we really understand his architecture. He really understands that he has to give us the freedom to do what we do. And so, but he knows that we're going to be completely respectful of his project. Like, actually, one of the first houses that Suzie and I got that was like, just became this very important project for us when it was completed, was a house with Bill. And at first, like, Bill hated me. And he like,
You're
he was
making
like,
friends.
yeah, he's like, who is this like interior person coming in here and like telling me what I should do with my architecture? And like by the end of that project, we were like buddies, like because he understood that like I wasn't trying to like I don't know like talk shit about his architecture or like say that it wasn't like wasn't good. I was just my whole thing is like we can make it better. Like if we just make
Mm.
these adjustments, like this could be so much better. Like what if we looked at it this way? And luckily he is like completely open to that. And so now it's like we are able to, he knows that like it comes from a place of love, not like I'm not trying to like cause any trouble. And so we're able to like have this great debate. Like, and we sometimes get into it as well. And Suzie has seen that, but he's kind of like become family, and where like I feel like we can spar, and it's like at the end of the day we can still go and have a glass of wine, kind of thing.
Is most of your work in the residential sector?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right now, occasionally we will get the one-off where a client who's already a residential client wants to do an office, or they have a project going that they want to bring us in on, hospitality related. But currently, we are all residential except for some light consulting we're doing on a very famous restaurant here in Seattle. That's sort of like a ongoing whenever they need whenever they
Oh,
need anything.
gotcha.
And we
Yeah.
work for trade. We work for food.
Food and drink.
Yeah.
Hey, that works.
Yeah.
So, is there a Lucas design aesthetic and signature look?
I think that's always a hard one because, like, people ask us that, and I think for us, it's so important to honor the architecture and also be, feel grounded in the place that we're
Mhm.
building in, so things like I think we put our stamp on it by always being really sensitive to scale and proportions and interesting textures, making sure interiors feel really warm and comfortable.
Mhm.
But it's like that can be translated into a beach house or into a mountain house. I mean, is there anything you would add to that, Dave? I
No,
mean,
I no, go ahead, Sue.
no, no, no. I'm
I was just gonna say that like I think that like what we're sort of known for is maybe being able to see have a vision for a project,
Mhm.
and like again it's like understanding what the architecture is, like Suzie said, and really understanding how to bring the best out of that architecture, and the site, and sort of like what the client is looking for. Suzie is like an amazing listener with clients. I'm usually the one who is just sort of like, no, 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 no. Let me tell you, like, this is what I see. This is going to be amazing. And then Susie's the one that's just like, yeah, but like, they have 4 kids, and maybe we shouldn't, like, maybe there needs to be handrails in this house, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's so I think that between the two of us, like we really try to push the boundaries, and we try to bring, do things that are interesting and exciting, but tempered with like, this is for this whoever the family is, like it's for
Mhm.
these people. We need to make sure that we're like meeting all their needs, and then maybe also like exceeding those needs with things that they're going to even be surprised about at the end of the day. I would say
So,
we're
so
not
you're,
really
go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was just gonna say, I would say we're not really driven by like any sort of like trends or fads. Like that's not like I specifically go out of my way to detail things so that they're
Mm-hmm.
difficult to build so that they can't be reproduced. Like that's kind of my goal a lot of times on projects is like how can we do this so that we're not going to see it on, like show up in like, a million projects. And
Right. So it sounds like, Susie, you're the practical one, and Dave is the more visionary or
I
experiential
would say
person.
that's he's like the big picture. Usually like gut reaction, big picture of what a project needs or what the big moves are.
Hmm.
And then depending on the size of the project and what's going on, and we'll work with designers in our office, and we're very collaborative. We love working with project teams. I always think like you get the best design when you're bouncing ideas around, and there's a lot of bad ideas, and then you kind of edit it to
Right.
what the best for me is usually like when you go through like 5 options and you come back to what you thought like your first idea, and then you're like, "Okay, that was,"
The
you
best.
go with your gut, but you had to explore the 5 different
Right.
see,
avenues to make sure you're going the right way.
and then meanwhile, I'm always like, you see, we didn't have to explore all those things. We knew from the start. We should
I
just like
know.
listened. But yeah, you have to
Part of
go
the
through the
process.
process. Yeah.
So what is your process and approach to new projects?
But
Well,
it's
it's, like,
go
kinda
ahead,
just
Sue.
that. It's kinda just that. I think Dave usually when we, depending on at what point we get brought in, our preference is usually, like, once there's a floor plan, at least a draft of an architectural floor plan, so that we have an understanding of, like this is assuming ground up construction, not a
Hmm.
remodel, but, so we understand all the, like, regulatory aspects of building, like, what are the setbacks? What are what the scale what scale does the building need to be? Once we get that sort of first draft from an architect, David will look at it and start just looking at it with a discerning eye and trying to boil it down to what is the big move? What is the feeling of the house? We communicate a lot with just, like, reference images or looking at old historical references, pulling together palettes of materials, trying to get the client excited about, like, the poetic aspect of what it is to build, like, a
Hmm.
beautiful dream home. Um, and once we have a little bit of a sort of vision and idea of all that, we do go pretty quickly into 3D modeling, which is an amazing tool that has taken has changed our industry. Um, it's incredible what you can do with these plans,
Right.
with these, models, and depending on who we're working with in terms of an architect's office, we'll do a lot of back and forth studies, in 3D models and just start we always start with kind of the public spaces or the main big spaces of a project, um, get the client on board for that, and then sort of filter that language into the entire house. But, I mean, it's all fun. We're so lucky to get to do what we do. It's like it's ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, we really are. We have, like, such great clients. Um, we just get to dream up crazy stuff all day. I mean, it doesn't always all land, and sometimes
Yeah.
the budget comes back and people are like, no, we're not doing that." But it's
Sometimes
really
it works out.
sometimes it works out.
So that's good. Is
Yeah.
there any, tell us a little bit about your current projects you're working on, ones you've just recently completed.
Well, so I think that they kind of run the gamut in terms of residential projects. We're working on this great remodel in La Jolla, which I'm very excited about because the client, the house is like it's like this amazing site, like so beautiful. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things I think that gets both Susie and I really excited is like if it's just this like gorgeous spot and you're like, okay, this can be, this site could really handle a good piece of architecture. And like if the client understands that and understands that like it's going to be painful, it's going to be expensive, but at the end of the day, it's going to be amazing, and you're going to be so happy that you went through this process to get this house. So we have that client with this project right
Right.
now where they're like, because they've lived in it actually for about 10 years, and the house has been like beat to, it's like it really needs to be. I mean, it probably should have been burned down and like rebuilt, but instead we just kind of took it to the studs.
Mhm.
But it's just has such potential that I'm really excited about it. And then we're also like Susie said, it's like what's great for us with our projects is we have clients who just want us, like they just want interesting things. Like this one family we work with a bunch, they in COVID, they sort of realized they're like, all right, like when we have to like hunker down, we need space to be able to, because they travel with like, they want to bring their friends with them and like have their little like group of people. And now that like let's say that COVID's over, even though it isn't, kind of is,
Yeah.
they're able to like, we're just moving on, right? They still function the same way. Like when they go to their, some of their houses, they want to be able to bring their friends with them. So they decided to add this like 12,000 square foot addition to one of their current homes. And it's got like, you know, entertaining spaces, like all the things that you'd want to be able to do. And with this house in particular, they had an architect who designed this thing for them. And I was like, this isn't what you should be building here. This doesn't feel right. And I just kind of like, it's one of those cases where I sort of came to the client honestly and was like, hey, like, I really think you need to rethink this. I think it needs to be this. And they were like, yes, this is what we need to do. And so I'm really excited about this project because they trusted me to change gears, change
Mhm.
directions. Like they're really excited about it. Our whole project team is like really excited about it. And it's just going to be this like amazing like addition to these people's house where they can entertain all their friends, and hopefully they'll entertain us once or twice there too, so we'll get to use it.
There you
But
go.
yeah, so we're just like, I don't know, I'm excited about what clients have made possible for us in terms of like the projects that they bring to us.
So on that note, how do you balance the client's, preferences with your own vision?
I don't. Luckily Susie Susie will come
I
in
mean,
and be kind of the mediator.
I
Well, 'cause
think
so
No, that's not
sometimes they
true,
will
that's
bring
not true.
you a picture, and it's like, a person with a haircut, it's like, "I want my hair to look like this." It's like, it doesn't work because in design, it's your
Yeah.
lifestyle and the way the functionality and stuff, so how do you kind of incorporate that? They have a very precise preference, and then you have to kinda detour and install or guide them into a different design vision.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to, you gotta let them put that one thing on that you're like, "You should probably take that off." But, you
Right.
gotta let them wear that. But at the same time, like, as long as for me, we do have to, obviously we have to listen. We have to understand what it is they're trying to achieve. And I think what we try to do, both Susie and I, and I'll let her speak to it as well, is we try to find the best version of that thing and just build a strong argument as to why
Right.
maybe what they're looking for isn't actually that picture, but maybe it's this other thing that, and kind of point out the functional relationship of like what, why those things, how they're related, why they are the same, but how the slight differences make it that much better.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to tell people, like, this isn't gonna like, we have this client who I just adore, and she is having so much fun with the process, and she last night, she's sending this incredible, legitimately incredible, like, mid-century screen that,
Mhm.
like, floats down from the ceiling, and I'm like she's like, "Can we do something like this?" And I'm just like, "No." Like, you don't have like, yes, it's amazing, but you just don't this was just not gonna work in your
Right.
face. Like, you just get another house, I don't know, like, it's not and she's like, "I know," she knows. she's just like, "Isn't it just so cool?" And you're like, "Yeah, let's just we look at the picture."
And that's also like one of the, I think what we both, Susie and I, are really thankful for is that like we have clients that are actually really interested in their projects. I mean,
Mm,
in the world of high end residential, like we don't have those clients where they're like they live, in another country, and their owner's rep has contacted us to furnish this 25,000 square foot house, and they're gonna come at the end, and like we don't have those, are not like our projects. Our clients want to be part of the process. They're interested in design. I think that's one of our strong suits, is really being able to collaborate with the client as well. Like they're part of that process, they're part of the discussion, and they're like, their opinions are equally as valid. And, like just because we're the quote unquote like design professionals, they also, obviously they bring to the table their own design aesthetic, their own, ideas and their dreams and all that stuff. And it's our job to, kind of figure out how to make that happen and say no.
right.
I mean, it is important to say no. Like, I actually just emailed a client, like, please let me protect you from yourself with some of your idea. Like, you got, sometimes you just have to let them know that, like, yeah, this is, you're going to take things in a direction that's not going to work for the project.
So what motivates and inspires both of you creatively?
I think in terms of motivation, it's just always, trying to do better, like, every house we finish, it's funny, it's especially in the world that we operate in, some of our projects can take 3 to 5 years, right?
Mm,
Especially some of the big ones, and a lot of it just boils down to, like, you'll work on something for 3 years, and it's like, "Okay, we're gonna get, like, maybe 20 great pictures out of it," and out of those 20 pictures, maybe, like, 8 of them could get published potentially. So it's like it's kind of like you get to the once you get those finished photos, I mean, that's, like, always the most exciting part for an interior designer because
mhm,
how else do you get to share your work with your colleagues and other people in the world, right? It's like it's our finished art, right? And it's so hard, that whole process is, it's also just hard. I mean, architectural photography is amazing. What the f We're so lucky to work with, like, I mean, I know you had Douglas Friedman on the
right.
show. I mean, watching Doug, like, work and capture a space is incredible. And the just the all the tricks that go into it, it's insane. So I think it's, like, always striving to not only finish the project, but get these beautiful captured images, and then it's like, "Okay, we got that done. What can we do better next time? How can we improve it? How can we make everything more efficient?" And just surprise people. So that's what motivates me, is, like, always just striving to do better work.
Mm,
Yeah. I think that for me, honestly, like, I still get really excited from, I'll get that floor plan for a new project, and just sort of like it kind of gets my brain, like, it starts to have to like move and work, and start to like manipulate the space in my head, and like how can this be improved? What, like, how can the flow of this space work better? How can we clean up these lines to like, kind of edit this down to what is the strongest, parts and pieces of this architecture. So for me, it's like getting the, I'm not the kind of person, like, left to my own devices, I'm going to be like on my sofa watching TV, not talking to my husband. You know what I mean? Like every good American. Like that's
right.
like me on my own. But in the so I really need that, like, I need that catalyst, which is the like the architect. Like, I need a plan, or like, for instance, something for me that, like, right now I'm sort of like trying to find a house in Seattle, which is like trying to find a needle in a haystack at the moment. But
Right.
and if it doesn't happen, that's fine. But I'll go to these to a site. Like, an actual site will be like so inspiring for me. Just being able to imagine, like, what are the, based on this site, like, what is the best way to bring out what is, the best qualities of this location. Like those are the kinds of things that for me, like it starts to get my brain working.
Mhm.
And then I just like I'm instantly starting to design, based on information that I'm getting. And that's kind of, I think, where how my process works is it has to be, I feel like I work better when I work in collaboration with like some other thing, whether it be an architect who can bring me a plan that that we can collaborate on together, or um I don't know, a sister who comes and
Or 2, a
yeah,
sister or
or
2.
two. Yeah, I guess I like punishment. I like to be like beaten down by my little sisters. That's what inspires me.
Do you feel you both take, challenges and risk in your design and creatively?
I mean, I would say that I do. I mean, I like literally will redesign something completely and just ask a client to like move forward, with something that they weren't
Mhm.
even expecting to do. I mean, I'll let Sue, Sue, do you take risks?
I think, um, it's like a balance, right? You have to have a good foundation and then sure, like a crazy, add one crazy thing in, add a few like unexpected moments because otherwise, there's you need to keep a room or a space dynamic, right? So there
Mhm.
has to be something challenging, like maybe that chair that you never doesn't seem like it fits actually will be the thing that brings everything together. So, but I think because of the fact that we do really try to be proud of the fact that I'm always thinking about design being timeless. It's like I don't want things to get dated. I don't want
Right.
things to, like clients, this is such an investment. It's like I want the best is when you go back to a project like 10 years ago and it still looks fresh and great
Mhm.
and all they need is like a couple, new pillow inserts because things have been worn.
Right.
So it's like a careful amount of risk.
I also think that like actually for both of us, I think we're really inspired, and we were challenged by like the various like work rooms and artists that we work with. Like in Seattle, we have a lot of terrific metal workers, and so like it'll just inspire us to add things into our projects that from the outside might seem like, like, why would you do something like this? But because of the
Mhm.
fact that we know that we have this incredible artist and support to try to do something, like we're able to collaborate and work on, kind of bring in elements to our projects that, you might not see every day. At least I don't.
I
Maybe I'm not looking in the right places. I don't know.
Is there 1 or 2 projects that you can think of that said, "Okay, now we're official, we're really a business"?
I don't know. I'll let you answer your give your answer too, but mine is no, because I feel like it's been this like climb. Like I feel like it's like little steps, it's like not like one big thing that completely open things up. It's like we've
Mhm.
just slowly built all of these relationships, and that's really what it's about. It's like we have this incredible network of like we work with this contractor, Hill Construction down in Southern California also, that it's like like they'll bring projects to us. We will try to bring projects to them. We try to we're like, oh, this could be really interesting for us to collaborate on together, and then like we're able to do these amazing things. And it's like it's more about when you look back, you're like, oh wow, like look at where we've gotten to, rather than like we completed this project and we're like, oh, we got to this point. It's more of like
Right.
kind of like retrospectively being like, okay, we have this great network of people that we've built over all of this time and years and energy, that has like, we've kind of like staked our place in this industry.
Mm.
I do think for me, having our office building that we bought this crappy little building in Ballard. I don't know if you're familiar with Seattle, but it's like the old fisherman neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
and it was 2 commercial fishermen had this building. It was like a wreck, and we completely redid all the finishes in it, and so I think for me, that was something that was like, okay, it feels like we have, like, a place that we at least that in terms of a business we can call home, that we know we won't have to, like, negotiate a lease or, we built it so that we can, like, have room to grow, and it's just I mean, that has been, like, a great thing for our studio, so I would say that for me made
Mhm.
things feel real, like, "Oh, we're really doing this. This isn't pretend."
It didn't feel
I
real when we were in my condo suit. That wasn't real enough for you?
well, that's what I was gonna say, like, it was a process to get there, literally working out of David's condo, and then we were working out of like, a commercial storefront space for many years, and we are just, like, outgrowing these spaces, so finally having this building that we're really proud of, I think it has been a big kind of, like, checking the box of something that I'm proud of.
Is there one particular project that you both wanna do that you haven't been asked to do yet, or hasn't come to the plate?
Well, we've been asked to do one that we really wanna do that we haven't gotten yet, so hopefully
Keep your fingers crossed for us. I don't
uh
know. The White House? I don't know.
Hey, why not? Start at the top.
Dream big, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You keep on saying it, it will come to you.
Yeah, I mean, how amazing would that be? Like, I love history and just you just never know.
So what's next for the design firm and each of you?
To and they're like, "I don't know, we're just trying to get through the day."
I
No,
know.
I don't we have honestly so many exciting projects right now. It is we are in a like an I think this next year, 2024 is gonna be a big year for us because we have 2 very large projects that this is like a big year for these projects. They hope to both be finishing by 2025, so I
Mhm.
think it's just gonna be really staying, on top of every detail of those, at least that's what is on my forefront right now,
Yeah,
and
I think that we both and just all 3 of us siblings in general, we just sort of, like we just have, like, blinders on, and we're just so, like, focused on, like, we just wanna do the best that we can possibly do that, like,
Mhm.
we don't really, like, oftentimes step outside of that to and actually Susie and Rachel and I have all been like, "Oh, we need to maybe do this. Maybe we need to, like, stop and, like, kind of say, what is it, what is that thing that we wanna do, and how can we make that thing happen?" Like, you're reminding us that, like, we probably need to do this and, like, maybe just, like, stop working for a minute and, like, do something, make a plan for some bigger, greater thing that we could potentially do. But it's hard to because we do really enjoy just the day to day work on our projects. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like working with family and friends. Like, I'm like laughing all day long with the various projects teams, like it's
That's the
just,
best part.
yeah, it's great. It's like we're like gossiping, it's it's pretty fun. It can be a fun industry.
Is there anything else you both wanna add or tell us about that we haven't, discussed or you haven't shared?
I we were kidding around, like, we don't really have anything to promote except for ourselves, but we do always want to, remind people to hopefully follow us on Instagram. We try to do, like, fun behind the scenes, um, snapshots of our projects, and yeah, just always looking for the next new fun project or fun person to collaborate with. And I mean, Instagram is pretty incredible in terms of connecting people in this world.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, social media is pretty such a powerful thing. Like, we have actually, through Pinterest, got probably one of our, like, best projects ever,
Wow.
and just because somebody
so random.
kept randomly pinning images of our work, and then she was like, "Oh, wait, like, I've pinned half a dozen images from this firm, like, maybe I should contact these people."
Maybe I should
So
hire you.
yeah,
It's
so it's
very,
just funny how it
very
works, right?
serendipitous.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway,
Well, I wanted to thank you both for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves as well.
It was great. Thank you, Cray. We feel really, honored to be a part of this. It's a
Well,
thank
great
you.
thank
thing
you,
you're
and
doing.
much continued success to both of you and your firm and your other sister.
Yeah,
Yes.
poor Ray.
Shout out. Shout out to Rachel.
Well, we'll talk soon and take care of yourselves.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Cray.